Friends, thank you very much. Jeremy Corbyn, Islington North, leader of the Labour Party, first-time speaker. Chair Jeremy, thank you very much for inviting me to speak to conference today. Susie, thank you for that wonderful introduction, and thank you to the Scottish Executive for the great help and support they've given me in the first few weeks of my leadership of this party and the very positive discussions we've had. I also want to say a big thank you to Brian Roy and all of the staff of the Labour Party in Scotland for the fantastic job they've done, are doing and will do to take this party forward. I've warned Brian we're going to be seeing a lot of each other over the next few months because the priority for me is winning all over the UK and winning here in Scotland in May. I thank Ian for his speech and what he said today and all the other things he's doing and saying. When he spoke at the UK conference in Brighton last month, he described himself as the last man standing. But I tell you this, week after week in the shadow cabinets, in the floor of the House of Commons, and all around the Palace of Westminster, Ian is fighting Scotland's corner. He's standing up for Scotland. He's standing up for the people of this country. Ian, thank you for that. And you know you have the support of the entire Parliamentary Labour Party in doing this. I also want to say a big thank you and pay tribute to Kezia Dugdale and Alex Rowley. They could have opted for a very quiet life. They could have stood aside, let somebody else do it, take on those positions. But they chose to stand up at this crucial time for our party, to organise, to lead, to inspire, taking us through to the elections next year and offering a decent, good future for the people of Scotland. Thank you very much, Alex and Kezia. But friends, let's make one thing absolutely clear. It is for you all in the conference hall and conferences like this who decide the policies in which we will campaign. I look forward to being part of the campaign right through to next May. I've enjoyed working with Kezia. She's the leader of the party in Scotland. We're cooperating together in a spirit of solidarity. Cooperation and solidarity, two values on which our party and our movement were founded. And that solidarity and cooperation is international. This morning I was delighted to spend some time talking to the leader of the New Zealand Labour Party, Andrew Little, who's here today in Perth. Wished him well in the elections coming up in New Zealand, complimented him on the great work done by the New Zealand Labour Party and a tradition in New Zealand. The first country to get votes for women, the first welfare state in the world, first non-nuclear state for a very long time. Wonderful place, wonderful achievements, and we wish the New Zealand Labour Party well as a sister organisation around the world. And to me, it was also an enormous honour this morning to spend, unfortunately, quite a short amount of time with Senator Isabel Allende, the President of the Chilean Senate from the Chilean Socialist Party. Isabel's family went through what can only be described as hell in 1973 in the coup that destroyed the life of the great President of Chile, Salvador Allende. And Isabel was here today to talk to us and say thank you to the many people in Scotland and all over Britain that showed real solidarity when it mattered in the 1970s. That is international solidarity. Friends, we're now almost 6 months on from the election defeat in May, and that defeat was not felt more sharply anywhere than here in Scotland. I have friends described it as soul-destroying and devastating. We lost some great colleagues, some great MPs who have given this party and this movement years of service, and party members that have given their all to that election campaign. But with that election defeat, and it was a defeat, came a stark message from the people here in Scotland, and with lessons for us all across Britain. Our party needs to reach out more effectively to people who feel that politics is too distant, that it's alien from their lives. You don't need to be 500 miles away from Westminster to feel that. Many people, even in London, less than 10 miles from Westminster, or Liverpool, or Leeds, feel as alienated and distant from the political class as many people here in Scotland. That's why I stood to change our party, and people recognise that need for change. I want to thank all those that supported me in the election. I was elected, and I'm very grateful and very honoured by this, with almost 60% of the vote of members and supporters in the leadership election. I'm clear, as I'm sure you are too, that that is a strong mandate to change our party. We've already seen the enthusiasm of politics for the Labour Party since the election. Across Britain, we now have over 380,000 members. And here in Scotland, the number of members and supporters has more than doubled to over 30,000. That is a triumph as well. And having our numbers bolstered also gives us the opportunity to remind people of our historic and current purpose to look after and transform the lives of all of our people, not just those at the top. And that great Scottish socialist and poet, John Maclean, put it very well. He said this, and I quote, "I'm a socialist, and have been fighting and will fight for an absolute reconstruction of society for the benefit of all. To me, socialism is simple. It's a simple concept. It's about everyone caring for everyone else. It's not complicated. It's a simple human philosophy. There is a kinder, more caring way of doing politics. We don't have to compete. We need to cooperate. We need to cooperate as a party, as a movement, as unions, and everything else to achieve real change. But it's also a politics fired by our passion for fighting injustice, in our belief, another simple saying, an injury to one is an injury to all, a basic concept of solidarity we can all embrace. It's those values that I know will drive forward the Scottish Labour Party. And in your campaigning, your policies, your candidates, they will be determined here in Scotland. So, earlier this week, Kez and I signed a joint statement setting the direction of how we intend to devolve more power to the Scottish Labour Party. I'm proud that we are a UK-wide democratic socialist party. I believe in the words that are written on all of our membership cards, that we achieve more together than we can alone. But we have to recognise that Britain has changed, and our party hasn't always changed to keep up with it. When the Scotland Bill goes through the House of Commons, Britain will become one of the most evolved nations in the world. The Labour Party needs to change to respond to that and respond to the way that politics is now done. That's why it's right that decisions about Scottish Labour will be taken by the members and activists of the Scottish Labour Party. A Scottish Labour Party where decisions about your policy, the management of your affairs and the selection of your candidates will be undertaken here in Scotland. That's what I'm committed to and what Kezia and I intend to deliver, with the UK and Scottish Labour parties cooperating in solidarity with one another. There will be a united Labour movement working across Britain in the way that we always have. Our history is proud and can inform how we should react now and what we could do in the future. The radical tradition that has always been alive in Scotland has inspired me all my political life. Keir Hardie, our party's great founder, and I'm pleased we had a session on him this morning, and there's a great book around at conference today which I hope you'll read. He died 100 years ago this year. Born in poverty in Scotland, he was the emblem of what our Labour Party is about. For your information, he was also the last bearded leader of the Labour Party. But by being born in Scotland, he also represented constituencies in England, West Ham in London and Merthyr Tydfil in Wales. Our mission is the same as that which he laid out just 21 years into our party's life, when he said the movement would not rest until the sunshine of socialism and human freedom break forth upon our land. The sunshine of socialism, friends. I couldn't think of a better description for what our country needs to break away from the narrow, nasty, divisive politics that the Tory government is giving us and the Tory party has always given us. We've seen it since May, and it was on full display this week as they sought to portray a crisis they're inflicting, and Ian was right about this, on 3 million families as a constitutional crisis. Hardy's sunshine of socialism was about providing people with decent housing. It was about promoting peace and defending jobs. And there is no contradiction between those last 2 points. We know there are skilled jobs in the defence industry. We cannot be negligent about skills and jobs. We must secure every one of them. But don't tell me that we can't also put some of those skills to better and different use. Security of jobs for innovators, engineers, technicians, security staff and civil servants are important. So no one should even consider allocating 1 penny of any money that may be saved by not renewing Trident until every one of those skills and jobs are protected through a proper programme of management of that change. You will be debating this position this weekend, and you will take a decision for the good of the people of Scotland and for the good of our party. But whatever you decide, it must be in solidarity with the workers who may feel nervous and may feel threatened, and communities that may feel vulnerable. Our job as a Labour Party is to stand with communities, with workers and with people to protect them, support them, encourage them and ensure they have a decent, strong economic future in this country and indeed all across Britain. And Scotland has always demonstrated its international solidarity in an almost unique way. From those Scots, so many of whom sadly never came back, who left this country to fight fascism and stand alongside the Republicans in the Spanish Civil War, who commemorated with that wonderful memorial on the banks of the Clyde. It was also demonstrated many decades later when the Scottish people supported the fight for democracy in Chile, when refugees were welcomed by Scottish trade unionists, including just down the road in Fife, where the coalfield communities took in Chilean families fleeing from Pinochet. And it was in East Kilbride, where 4,000 trade unionists at Rolls-Royce refused to handle Pinochet's engines destined for jets to be sent to Chile to crush the Chilean people. Theirs was a real act of solidarity that I will never forget. And the anti-apartheid movement was one of the strongest here in Scotland. And it's always a pleasure, whenever I go to Glasgow, to see the sign up there, a Mandela Place, and all the other commemorations of Nelson Mandela all across Scotland. It shows, when you stand up for people in the most desperate situation, they feel stronger, we feel stronger, together we're very strong. And the release of Nelson Mandela did happen. That was real solidarity in action. But we're standing up for human rights now, today, around the world. We're opposing the Tory plans to withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights. What moral rights would we have to condemn anyone's human rights abuses anywhere around the world if we withdrew from a convention that binds us to respect human rights in this country and across this continent? So we demand that our government takes its share of the desperate refugees fleeing to our continent as a safe haven from the horrors of war in Syria and indeed elsewhere. But I tell you this, by speaking up on the human rights abuses in Saudi Arabia, the government was forced into a U-turn to cancel the application to run the prison service in Saudi Arabia. We should never be afraid to stand up for the human rights of people in a desperate situation, however rich, however powerful the government or the country is that is abusing their human rights. And today is, for many of us, and I'm sure everyone here, a very special day. We're welcoming home to Britain Shakar Amir, finally freed after 13 years in Guantanamo Bay. And that happened because ordinary people campaigned, because Reprieve campaigned, because MPs campaigned, and a number of us went on a delegation to Washington in May to plead for the release of this man who's never been charged with anything. He's coming home today. Well done, all those that campaigned. Don't walk by when people are collecting signatures for human rights and petitions. It matters. It does change things. It does help people. We stand for human rights and against injustice at home and abroad. And conference, we've got to remain united against what this Tory government is doing. Look at what they're doing in the economy. Look at their failure over the steel industry. 1 in 5 of the jobs in that industry have either gone or under threat. Yesterday, I was in Scunthorpe, visiting the steel plant there, meeting workers who've given their whole lives to that plant, a community that feels desperately under threat as that plant is under threat itself, or at least part of it so far. They were worried about a government that doesn't care about steel communities, that has no industrial strategy, no long-term economic plan, other than an ideological commitment to shrink the state and support a free market economy globally, which results in cutting services, jobs, and benefits. I want to pay tribute to Angela Regal, our Shadow Business Secretary, who's led the fight on this. We need to fight for every job in every part of Britain in the steel industry, including Motherwell, Cumberslang, and every other steel facility. We've got to defend that industry. But you have to ask yourself the question why it's taken so long for the UK government to act, and why have the UK and Scottish governments failed to procure steel from the plants in this country as they're able to do. And friends, with the Tories attacking the tax credits and the incomes of working people, we need to renew our fight for decent wages. We shall not rest, as our Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell has said, until those cuts are reversed fairly and in full. John is here today in Perth at this conference, and he was right too when he said at the UK conference that austerity is a political choice, not an economic necessity. Conference, be assured that our political choice will always be to act in the interests of all and to rebalance our economy in a way that is just and fair. But look at the choices George Osborne is making. Money available for giveaways to the wealthiest families, to big corporations, yet the books are being balanced on the backs of the middle and low-income families. 1,300 a year will be taken from nearly 250,000 families across Scotland from next April. And across the UK as a whole, these tax credit cuts will put another 200,000 children into poverty. And 500,000 more children are already in poverty than there were in 2010. How can we rest when the government is trying to dismantle the support for working people that we, the Labour Party and the Labour government, put in place? Why should our members of the House of Lords not take action to force the government's hands, as they did earlier this week? I tell you, this conference, we will use every mechanism at our disposal, every possible opportunity to stop these unfair, unjust, punitive attacks on working people. No one will be left with any doubt about who the Labour Party stands for or who we stand with. It's true on tax credits. It's true on the trade union bill too. The trade union bill is quite simply an attack on working people's living standards just as much as the tax credit cut. The best way to get job security, to get a fair pay rise, to win equal pay, is through well-organised unions at every workplace. When you attack trade unions, you attack jobs, pay and pensions. I want to pay tribute to those Labour-led local authorities who've promised not to assist in this draconian attack on the rights of working people to organise. Frank McAveety, our leader of our city council in Glasgow, said, "Glasgow will say no to these attacks on working people, and we will not cooperate with attacks on facility time or check-off." That's a good message. That's a message we want for every local authority all across Britain. Keir Hardie's sunshine of socialism was about allowing human freedom to break forth. But under this government, it's breaking down. An education system where 6,000 children a year leave primary school unable to read properly. There are 4,000 fewer teachers in Scotland's classrooms. And where, in that great vehicle for social chance and social change, the college system, there are 140,000 fewer students going to college. It's not right, not fair, not necessary. The Health Service Audit Scotland warned only last week of the pressure there is on our cherished National Health Service. 7 of the 9 targets missed and a real terms budget cut. I agree with Neil Frindley and Alex Rowley that it's a national scandal that a baby born this afternoon in our most deprived communities will become ill and die decades earlier than a baby born into one of our least deprived and most prosperous parts of this country. Not right, not necessary, it's got to change. So I was, to say delighted would be the wrong word, but pleased and informed to read the report into health inequalities commissioned by Neil Findlay that was launched here earlier today. We've got to take very seriously the issues of health inequality. That's what our Labour mission is about. That's why we have a national health service. That's what Aneurin Bevan spent his whole life trying to achieve. We defend it to the last breath we have. In local government, tens of thousands of jobs have been lost under the Scottish Government's watch, and many more are likely to go. Only this week we've seen some of our councils under so much financial pressure, they're tragically now planning even further redundancies. Friends, if you want socialist change, if you want a left-wing alternative, you have to vote for it. If you're satisfied with rising inequality, rising child poverty, and widening health inequalities, then Labour, not for you. If you're satisfied that 1 million people in Scotland are in fuel poverty, or that half of all housing in Scotland falls short of official quality standards, then again, Labour's not for you. But if you're not content, if you won't walk by on the other side, then support, join and vote for a party next May that is a democratic socialist party in both our words and our deeds. It's the Labour mission that no one is left behind, that everyone has the chance to get on, socially, economically, and culturally. That pensioners won't have to choose between heating and eating. That working class children have the same opportunities to learn a musical instrument, to dream, to paint, to write, to draw, to thrive and realise their full potential, every child, not just the children of the wealthy and the few. That young workers have the same opportunity to improve their skills, that older workers can go to college to retrain. I was a great admirer of that wonderful Scottish woman, Jenny Lee, who founded the Open University. And when she described how the Open University was going to run. She said it does not insult any man or woman, whatever their background, by offering them the second best. Nothing but the best is good enough. That was her vision of the world that she wanted to live in, and she wanted for everybody in this country. What a wonderful woman, what a wonderful legacy the Open University is that she achieved. Whether it was true or not, we were perceived to be a party that no longer represented the whole of Britain. It's my mission, it's our mission to turn that around. That means engaging with thousands of people who've never voted before and giving them a reason to turn out and support us. Too often people say that everyone involved in politics are all the same. We've got to break that perception. In the referendum last year, 85% of people did vote, because the stakes were very high, because they knew that regardless of how people voted, it would have a dramatic effect on the future of this nation. I believe that all politics today, not just constitutional politics, is that important. The stakes are high. When we vote for a government, as we're seeing with these Tories, the decisions have an impact on the lives and life chances of an entire generation. It's true in Scotland, it's true across the whole of Britain. So let's take the best of the energy of the referendum campaign unleashed, and let's fuse that with Hardy's hopeful vision. Let's keep going until, as Keir Hardie said, the sunshine of socialism and human freedom break forth upon our land. It's a vision of a more equal Scotland and a more equal Britain, a Labour vision of the kind of future we want. Let that be our mission. Let's cooperate to build that decent, caring, inclusive, democratic society where everybody matters, everybody's included, every child can fulfill their ambitions and their dreams. That is our mission. That is our vision. That is the Labour vision. Thank you very much.